Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. It's been a while since we've done one of these where I've actually gone fishing and not just used previously recorded footage, and I can't begin to express to you the pleasure it was to finally put on my boots and head down to the pond and finally cast a line. If you haven't had the opportunity to go fishing in your life, I can't recommend it enough. There's nothing more peaceful and tranquil than a man simply being one with nature, having his supplies with him, and just going out and casting out. Even if you don't catch anything, it's a great way to simply lose the stress and enjoy your time in the outdoors. But with that being said, I had originally put something up that was scripted for today's video, but I'm in the middle of having this idea in my mind. It's not fully formed or completed, so I thought that I would talk it out with you instead. So if you don't mind a little more of an extemporaneous video and conversation, I certainly hope that you'll forgive me as I try and figure out what's on my mind. Earlier today, in my oftentimes of just scrolling through Twitter when I'm at lunch at work or simply trying to kill time, I came across the ever-so-wonderful account The Libs of TikTok, often showing this sort of cringe compilation of TikTok videos of people going off on whatever is the latest progressive woke scold, whether it's on topics of transgendered issues, this new neo-pronouns business. But one, of course, was talking about the idea of what it means to be a Libra gender or something like this. I typically don't watch these videos with the audio on. I don't think I have the patience to do so. But the replies to me are always interesting, because this account is followed by a lot of normie con blue checkmarks, dissidents, and just about everyone I can think of on this side of Frog Twitter. But one of the things that stuck out to me the most was some Gen X, late 40s, early 50s parent, a mother I presume, saying that this girl who was sitting there with a buzz cut talking about this sort of gendered business, talking how this girl's ideas and viewpoints are going to be in for a rude awakening when she finally gets herself out there in what is always known as that phrase, the real world. Saying that reality is oftentimes a pretty big red pill for someone with these progressive, idealistic ideas. And I couldn't help but think of how wrong she is, or maybe that there's some sort of generational disconnect between Gen X and the millennials and Zoomers who are very much alive dealing with the consequences of woke politics today. I mean, we live in a world where both schools, businesses, and virtually every other institution in the world has strict rules and enforcement about pronouns, phrases about diversity and inclusion. Hell, even where I work, the company's CEO put out a statement regarding Black Lives Matter after the death of George Floyd, admitting to himself that I will never know your perspective as a privileged white male. Something that I've seen in dozens of corporate statements from CEOs across the country last summer. Yet, I can't help but think to myself, what does the real world even mean? I think back to my video that I had done a few months ago regarding woke capital, where I ironically bring up Little Caesars of all companies. But the argument I make in there is that the phrase go woke, go broke is typically some sort of coping mechanism for individuals that are disaffected that their favorite franchises are now being in the hands of woke writers' rooms and are implementing diversity, race, and gender swaps along their favorite movies, characters, and comics, and more. But oftentimes, it's also used when major companies decide to embrace something or a particular character as well, whether it's kneeling during the national anthem, or having Nike sign on Colin Kaepernick, the one who kind of started this whole kneeling business to begin with. Yet at the end of the day, those companies don't care that their ratings are down. Those companies don't care about the loss of revenue or profit, because it's not for us. It's not for anyone in that 25 to 45 age range ideal consumers with a disposable income. No, it's meant for the next generation who is going to be their ideal consumer, which is why we continuously see this woke propaganda move younger and younger and younger. Which is why here in the United States, and probably the UK as well, if I were to walk into any sort of Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or any other sort of bookstore like half-priced books, the children's section is probably going to have everything from anti-racist baby to My Two Daddies. Things about body positivity and embracing the unhealthy obese lifestyle, or the myth that one can be healthy at every size. And all is done for the purpose of having the next generation conditioned, indoctrinated, so they know, as almost like a Pavlovian response, that they're meant to buy the product that virtue signals the loudest, that is the most diverse in their casting choices, or has the most women on board rather than achieving some sort of gender parity, taking the ideas of liberal egalitarianism to their logical conclusion. And in doing so, when I look around, that very much is the reality that we live in today. It's in part why I'm growing increasingly concerned about the battle over critical race theory in schools. What a better way to have progressive indoctrination than to go to a place where these children, who typically have nowhere else to go due to both parents working just so they can work to have a roof over their heads, deal with the fact that their schools are now going to teach their white children to grow up and hate themselves, or at the very least embrace the very incoming punishment that is coming their way. To a point where someone who either gets out of college or goes to the real corporate world will most likely not be anything more than the entry-level office worker because they'll be passed up for a promotion every time in the name of diversity. And they'll internalize it, saying, well, they're probably right. I am a white, straight, cis male, so it's probably someone else's turn to go ahead of me instead. All that this does is seem to weaken one's ambitions, at least within the male space and sense of the world around them. This is the reality that we live in. The idea that reality is going to somehow magically red pill these, rural-turned-urbanite college students who probably won't go back to their hometowns, and when they do, all that they're going to do is record to their parents who don't understand this gender nonsense, or this schizophrenia nonsense, or whatever mental illness of the day they might have invented for the next TikTok video they post online. To me, the simple fact is that reality is no longer going to be a mechanism that can actually red pill people anymore. I think for those that believe that there are still individuals out there to red pill, you're probably absolutely right. But much like anyone who works in the medical sector, you're going to have to conduct an ideological triage in order to assume and assert where on earth is going to be the best usage of your resources, whether it's online or on the ground. Because, as reality has clearly shown us with some of these individuals who have no problem being anti-natalist, anti-family, anti-anything that seems remotely in a sense of nomos and order, well, obviously those people are going to be triaged first. Throw them right off the list. Focus on individuals that you can at least have a conversation with, those that can at least be open to ideas and discourse. But, then again, does that ever really work? I mean, earlier this week, I had watched Academic Agent argue with individuals who support the idea of transgender children, where he had ended up winning the argument, having them concede that really only adults can consent to life-changing decisions, but they'll still double down on their position every single time. It seems to me that reality is the ultimate creator of cognitive dissonance, because to every individual's own perspective, reality is going to be different. Hell, even on the right, our own first principles, our own ideas of what it means to be right-wing, causes these egotistical clashes online and on our videos when we talk about the ideas of other content creators. I don't know whether or not reality is going to be successful anymore when our perspective of reality, at least on the right, has been effectively muffled, silenced, and institutionally transformed into some greater progressive evil. The liberal conclusion of most Enlightenment and liberal principles in our Western liberal democratic society. But like I had said, I haven't necessarily thought all of this out yet, but it does seem to see the fact that since reality is being shifted, conditioned, and used by the institutions to reformulate the world so that the next generation has no real opportunity to be exposed to alternate viewpoints that they see evil, something has to be done about institutional control over these ideas of reality. But like I had said, I'm still thinking this through. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video.